Good morning, Asean. Freshen up your world, your thought, and your idea with us every weekday from 7:30 to 8 a.m. I'm Patsurang Desha Putharangsi.
And I'm here with you, Nirasha Malisakalami. Today is Monday, 24th of June, 2013. Let's start off with the haze situation in the southern part of the region where Malaysia and Singapore, which yesterday Malaysia's government declared a state of emergency into southern district, shocked by the smoke from forest fires in Indonesia as air pollution levels reach a 16-year high. Malaysia's Environment Minister G. Palanivel said that the air pollution index, or API, hit 750 in the town of Muar, the highest reading seen in Malaysia in 16 years on Sunday morning, with two other southern towns also reaching hazardous levels. Haze is an annual problem during dry summer months when westerly monsoon winds blow smoke from forest fires and slash and burn land clearing on the huge Indonesian island of Sumatra across the Malacca Strait to Malaysia and Singapore. Air quality in Malaysia capital Kuala Lumpur, which has so far escaped major impact from the current haze, also took a turn for the worse. The smell of the smoke penetrated the city, and the twin Petronas towers that dominate the skyline were invisible from just a short distance away, while many city residents donned facial masks. And meanwhile, Malaysia's API rated the capital's air as unhealthy. And meanwhile, on Sunday morning as well in Singapore, air quality in Singapore improved significantly as Indonesia took action to douse raging forest fires, and investigators scrambled to determine the cause of one of Southeast Asia's worst air pollution crises. Indonesia's environment minister said 8 domestic firms were suspected of being responsible for the blaze on Sumatra Island that blanketed neighboring Singapore in record levels of hazardous smog. The parent companies of the Indonesian firms include Malaysia-listed Simadabi and Singapore's Wilmar Group.
Let's catch the latest happening in Thailand as hundreds of anti-government protesters wearing white masks converged on Bangkok's shopping district in a reminder of the kingdom's political divisions. The demonstration by the V for Thailand movement, which is an enigmatic protest group spawned over social media, whose supporters wear the masks of comic book hero V, which might stand for Vendetta, was the 4th this month outside the Central World Complex in the heart of the city. The Deputy Metropolitan Police Chief Parinya Chansuriya said, adding that protests there were about 1,500 white mask protesters attended a protest, but was a peaceful one. Thailand has been plagued by political divisions and sometimes violent street protests involving so-called red shirt supporters, as we all know, of Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and her self-exiled brother Thaksin, and yellow shirts who support the pro-establishment opposition. Several other protest groups have sprung up in recent months, protesting against the government of Yingluck and the influence of her brother, who is seeking a return to the kingdom and faces jail over corruption. Meanwhile, there's little to be known about the leaders or political alliances of V for Thailand, but the group has swiftly developed a major social media profile rallying against the government and Thaksin. The group's Facebook page says it represents the people power, urging peaceful opposition to parliamentary monopoly and corruption.
And in Myanmar, yesterday night, Myanmar's President Office issued a press release lashing out at the Time magazine for featuring a Buddhist monk as Buddhist terror on the cover of its July issues. The press release says that the government of Myanmar opposes the Time magazine's cover story titled "The Face of Buddhist Terror," as it can be detrimental to the trust building between religions in Myanmar, and as it can damage the image of Buddhism, which has been the main religion of Myanmar for thousands of years. It says that the Buddhist monk Yu Wiratu, portrayed as Buddhist terror on the cover of Time magazine's volume 182, number 1, is a Sangha or a Buddha's son. Buddhist monks, also known as Sanghas, are the noble person who keep 277 precepts or moral rules and strive peacefully for the prosperity of Buddhism. Myanmar government says it does not discriminate the religions and grants freedom of religions. Although the majority of Myanmar people are Buddhists, the government has recognized in the constitutional section 362 that Christianity, Islam, Hinduism and animism are as the existing religions in the country, according to the release.
I've heard that Miss Honoree has attended a tango class in Myanmar. Yeah.
Let's have a look how she rocks.
Chatty Natty, this week we're still in Yangon, Myanmar to learn how to dance tango with Dr. Aung Thura, the CEO of market research firm Thura Swiss.
Why did you decide to start your class here in Yangon, your tango class in Yangon?
So when I moved to Yangon, I miss tango, you know. I was dancing it for so many years, and when I was here, there was no opportunity to dance tango. There's no tango community. So I said, okay, if I want to dance tango, I have to build up this community from zero. So that's why when I started to search a place where I could give a lesson, I started to post on Facebook, I will be giving tango lessons, please come. So people, sometimes people talk to their friends and they come in groups. And it started slowly, but we have now a community of like maybe, I don't know, 12 to 14 people who are coming.
Okay, at first when you posted, okay, you would like to teach tango, what was the reaction of the people?
Different. Some people said, yeah, I will be coming. Some didn't react at all. So you cannot say like it's not one simple reaction. But generally, I think it's a positive reaction. But not everyone who is interested would also come. Sometimes it's also for a society like Myanmar. It's also for girls maybe a bit difficult to come and say, okay, let's go to dance with guys. So sometimes that might also be a reason that not many people show up.
Okay, is this class for only people or can foreigners attend to?
It's totally free. I mean, it's also not restricted that you have to come every time. It's like when you feel like dancing, you can come, you can show up. If you don't come next time, it's also okay. And as long as I get the room free of charge, I also don't charge anything for the lesson. So it's really because I like dancing. So I would like to build up the community here.
How do you have like a lesson plan? Because I believe that every class there will be a beginner like myself attending your class. How do you fit the beginner with all the people who have already learned?
Sure. Let's say I have in my head which figures are beginners figures, which figures are more complicated figures, and I have also to see every time like who is coming this time. Is it like is the majority just beginners? Is the majority like people who have been coming regularly? So I try to adapt it a bit. So if it's like totally beginners, I start with the usual lessons like how to walk, how to shift the weight, and the basic principles of tango, and maybe like one first figure. And so it depends a bit on the situation, and I try to be flexible there.
So anyone help you at all, or just plan everything by yourself? I
plan myself. It's not that I prepare so much. So I have like my music on my phone, so I can just connect it and play it. And I have like in my mind what I can do. I know like step 1, step 2, step 3, or which typical figures I would put there.
What have you learned from dancing tango?
I think maybe not what I have learned, but why I like tango so much is, you know, first it's the music. It needs maybe sometimes that you get used to the music, but once you like the music, it's, you know, it draws you into the music. And then the second thing, the elegance, the nice figures, and sometimes the magic. So if a dancer and follower, you know, if you're dancing together, and sometimes it happens, not very often, but sometimes it happens, there's like a very deep connection without knowing each other, but it's just perfect, you know, it's a harmony, and if you experience these moments, it's really very nice. And it helps also to, you know, forget if you have like stress, if you're very busy with your work and you come to a tango lesson or you go dancing, you immediately don't think anymore about, you know, what has happened before, because you have to concentrate on every step what you're doing. So it's you cannot think about anything before, and it helps you know, cooling down in the day and shutting down, and so
Once again, this tango class takes place every Sunday from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on Damansedi Road, and is totally free of charge. Though it takes two to tango, you are more than welcome to come in alone. If you're interested, you can contact Dr. Aung Thura via this Facebook address below. Thank you for watching Chatty Natty, and I'll see you again next Monday. Bye-bye!
Well, she actually was dancing very good for a first-time beginner. Anyway, let's have a short break, and coming up we will have a short series about the Sihanouk wheel after the break.
It's been 4 months after the ceremony of cremation of King Sihanouk of Cambodia. Today is a story about how commoners reminiscing their own beloved king. The story of King Sihanouk and his commoners in Think Asean, Think Cambodia, the first episode.
The royal death of His Highness King Norodom Sihanouk is a great loss of the people of Cambodia. Although he abdicated and relocated to live in China since 2004, his revered leadership as the sovereign of the lands of Cambodia did not fade away from the hearts of his people at all. In the academic perspective of Cambodian archaeologist expert Dr. Chain Jan Ratnamon, who was brought up in Phnom Penh with basic education from colonial-era superpower France, he also reveres his great monarch.
We look to another country that no one can develop like Cambodia. It means that from 1960 to 1970, yes, it means that before the civil wars occurs in Cambodia. So because of this problem, and that many Cambodian people love, especially for the old people who survived from the Khmer Rouge period, and then he still loved the king. And he always, you know, mentioned about that. He always told their children that the king was the great king, that he built a lot of things for the Cambodia and do anything for our country. So that's why this it means that this image still keep in mind, you know, of the Cambodian people, both old people and the young generation. So that's why when we finish our civil war in Cambodia in 1993, that we have the first election, and many people believe on the king, and that's why they still they think that the king can do everything like before. especially actually that he still do it for the country. And even he was not the king and he gave the throne to his son, the king's Norodom Sihamoni, but the king father still do a lot of work to, it means that to consolidate the nation together. That's why this is the ideologies of the King Norodom Sihanouk, and especially to the young generations like me and like the other, that we still love our king, and we are so sad that he passed away.
Historically, King Norodom Sihanouk's legacy stands out in 3 eras. When Cambodia was under French colonial rule, the annexation of the colonial rule until the king's tenure as prime minister. Despite the fundamental differences of 3 eras, the governing approach of King Sihanouk has not changed. Reminiscing of the king between the perspectives of people living in the urban area and the rural countryside do not differ. Dr. Chain suggests this may be due to the fact that people who have experienced the king's earlier rule have moved to live in the urban areas, taking this experience with them. These people know that King Sihanouk has thoroughly developed the country, not any part in particular. The king wishes the urban and rural people to live equally. The people of Cambodia, whether living in rural or urban areas, loved and cherished his rule because of that. As for education, since Cambodia declared independence from France in 1953, King Sihanouk realized the importance of the development of the country that had just emerged from colonial rule. Cambodia must be able to stand on its own feet. Most importantly is the development that is not just infrastructure, which is the betterment and promotion of human resources of Cambodia. Dr. Chain said King Sihanouk fully promoted education, as he was the founder of the Royal University of Phnom Penh and numerous other universities in other provinces. Dr. Ziab Sopal is a historian professor who has dedicated his studies of the story of Norodom dynasty. He sees late monarch legacy and his figure as a teacher as irreplaceable. King Sihanouk is both a monarch and a politician, and one of the most influential person of the 20th century. No matter what era, the influence of King Sihanouk remains with the history and the people of Cambodia, while he was a political figure or a king. But in the hearts of the people of Cambodia, he was the king and will always be. Since the founding of the country, the people of Cambodia reveres him as the father of the nation, of freedom and of peace. On the side of the education, Dr. Sopal said King played a very important role in Cambodian education, the founding and construction of various universities, and the creation of the education system.
ចំពោះវិស័យអប់រំព្រះអង្គបានប្រឹងប្រែងគឺបើកសាកលវិទ្យាល័យជាច្រើនសាកលវិទ្យាល័យភូមិន្ទភ្នំពេញសាកលវិទ្យាល័យនីតិសាស្ត្រសាកលវិទ្យាល័យវិទ្យាសាស្ត្រសាកលវិទ្យាល័យភូមិន្ទវិចិត្រសិល្បៈសាកលវិទ្យាល័យច្រើនណាស់ដែលបានបើកនៅក្នុងសម័យសង្គមរាស្ត្រនិយម
Furthermore, King Sihanouk was a cultural conservative who was an inspiration and role model of even this legendary woman. The Cambodian government praises M. Thia as a national artist, preserving the traditional dances of the ancient Khmer civilization. The Grand Master tells us stories of the past when she once lived the royal palace like her own home. While she was recalling her past, the eyes of an 81-year-old grandmother sparked with the spirit of an artist, determined to pass on her legacy.
លោកឃើញខ្ញុំរំអីលេងចឹងទៅលោកថាទូលម្ដាយលោកថាម៉ែមើលកូនធីរំណាវារៀនរំយកវាឲ្យវារំទៅតាំងទៅឲ្យគ្រូដល់ទៅយកទៅឲ្យគ្រូរំលោកគ្រូលោកគ្រូអីទៀតគឺអត់យកតាន់លោកគ្រូយ៉ាក់យកបានខ្ញុំមុនចាចាចាអត់បានធ្វើនាងនារូងអត់បានធ្វើនាងតួអប្សរានាងតួនារូងលោមគ្នាហ្នឹងអត់ទេខ្ញុំតួយ៉ាក់ពាក់មុខហ្មងចាខ្ញុំឲ្យលោកគ្រូយ៉ាក់ហ្នឹង
When asked of the support given to performance arts from King Sihanouk, Grandmaster MTO told us that King Sihanouk is a developer king and supported the ancient Khmer civilization of performing arts. He helped me, he helped us all the dancers.
Tự bắt tới lùi thư cả bà ông lùi kèm tới và bày đà tùm miết đà lùi kè tốt khứ như ná lùi cái nơi cái xa lùi rồi về nơi của má đá ná đà lùi tới bán lùi kè trở lạnh thơ là bạ vì kè thoa mà đá kè bọc nó hồi miên xây hoàm trớn lùi có riêng tại tốt ngày chua ná mà ngay tới chua ná khan cái lá tới ba tôi lại mẹ được mà hạt cái á tôi nó tham màu mưa ná thằng tiệt đại hai thà tốt nó nên á là mà tốt tới đầu tới tinh chất mẹ ruộng tinh chất mẹ mình riêng nhờ nâng tới ban lúc xà lạnh tới ban bám bông chặt thầy của pha tivi này lướt cái búa ai nghe phụ ấy đang bay thà sao là bạn bồ ràng mày mình men vô phi nổ nà thế hay cứ cầm nát cao triết là bó triết vì thắt nữ nâng nông ông cô nhưng khơi cái lược đầy khơi chân biết bị bay sòng kháng cái lạ tục tăng pi biết đa bay đa cái đôn cái tai dương to màu bán bộ nhóm nó nên cú nhóm rẻ lụ rẻ xá thì mũi đào đậm thêm rồi dân nào rồi bán to bằng hạt mà đào bộ nhóm nó bán đậm thêm rồi mất nhóm của to mà đậm thêm rồi toàn này từ.
Although a short distance, the 6 kilometers from the royal Choktomok Palace to the cremation grounds on the other side of the palace was chosen as the route for the royal funeral procession. It was filled with people wearing white to commemorate the late king's legacy, to worship in the final rites that will see his soul to heaven. Once again, another important day in Cambodia history was written, but the love of the Cambodian people to this role model of a father and a king who lived and demonstrated a way to life and coexisting will be in the hearts of all Cambodians and passed on to their children and grandchildren.